Hey everyone, Chris Lambert for Film Colossus here, and today we're talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and the fact that there are two versions of this movie currently in theaters. So this got started, as far as I'm aware, with this viral tweet saying people are saying there's two versions when Lila gets Miguel to ask for backup. One where she takes a selfie with him with a bunny filter, and then another where she points at him. WTF, LOL, is that real? And they followed up with evidence of it. There are two versions. Across the Spider-Verse, and you can see here it had 112,000 likes. So this led to a number of viral tweets of people finding this. There were a few Reddit posts. The one that had all the lists of changes I couldn't find anymore. I don't know if it got deleted or what, but there's this editor, somebody that had worked on Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse, Andy Levitin, who said, I was wondering when people might start noticing. So you can see here, feature film editor, associate editor on Spider-Verse movies. Cool. That's a good thing to be. So this is confirmation that there are indeed two versions. The thing I'm curious about is whether or not it has something to do with this. The initial theatrical release of Across the Spider-Verse had some really bad audio, and they actually went so far to send an updated version to movie theaters. And I don't know if they purposefully had these multiple versions of the film already, and they just replaced all of them with the audio fixes, or if because they sent out this updated version with the audio fix, that's what created the different versions. And this editor knew, especially because he's the associate editor on these movies. The other thing, this could be intentional for just the sheer meta fact that this is a movie about multiverses and there being different versions of different characters. So I could see them being like, what would be cool if we had two different versions of the movie and people could point to it and be like, oh my goodness, which just is this example of form and function when you have a movie that's about multiverses, so you throw out multiple versions of it. I really like that concept. It's cool. So you can see here there were some Reddit threads about it, and they have links to some of these differences. This was the one. And you can see here Miguel talking to Lila, and this is where she goes to take the selfie, right? Right here. Boom. And then we compare that to this one right here. Nope. Oh, no. Yes. Yes, right here. So instead of doing the selfie, she goes and does the fist bump. So it's a very slight difference. And we have the Screen Rant article, which I'm sure just picked up on the Reddit article and built it out with some examples. But Miguel O'Hara and Gwen Stacy's first interaction. So it's just a joke. She asks if his name is the Blue Panther, to which he just kind of says that's funny. Classic Spider-Person quip, But the other version of the film just doesn't have that. So these aren't major differences in terms of plot, story, but there is just a little bit of a difference in characterization. I remember when I saw this in theaters, the Blue Panther line being in there and me thinking that's good because Gwen's so kind of shy when she's Gwen. Seeing her quip just like any other Spider-Person and kind of come out of her shell and be this smart, funny person that Miles definitely sees her as and that we know that she can be is cool to see. And you're just like, yeah, Gwen gets it. But when you remove that, you remove just a little bit of that characterization, which is kind of strange. It makes her feel a little more matter of fact rather than this kind of charming exchange. And it even characterizes Miguel O'Hara as well, with him just being like, that's funny. That kind of dry, mysterious, but still Spider-Person, appreciating the humor aspect despite how warped by responsibility he is. So then the scene where Miguel asks Lila for backup, this is what we just saw the example of. The scene where Spider-Man 2099 fights the Vulture. So when they go up in the air, there's this moment where we see Spider-Man 2099 start to turn into a spider, and he has this huge fanged mouth, and it looks like he's about to just chomp right down on Vulture. And in the other version, you don't get that either. And that's such a crucial moment of foreshadowing about just the spider zeitgeist, I guess, or the overall spiderisms that this movie is introducing us to. The fact that a spider person can turn into a literal Spider-Man is interesting and scary in a way, because is it just a Miguel O'Hara thing, or is it something that can happen to any of them, right? When Miles eventually fights Spot, is he going to turn into a spider? Will we see Spider-Man 2099 turn into a spider? We'll see. The scene where Jefferson fights the Spot, this is just like a slight difference in the fight. In one of them, Jefferson falls into one of the portals, gets up, complains, and looks around him. In the other version, the film only briefly shows Jefferson's face for a frame before cutting back to Spider-Man and the Spot. I mean, a lot of these just feel worse or unnecessary at best. But that's what makes it a little strange to me, because you think if they were doing real Easter eggs or real transitions, they would actually go the extra mile. This does also dovetail with the fact that editors have been complaining, or animators were complaining about the work they had to do on this movie, and specifically how one of the directors had them animate multiple shots because they weren't happy with one version of the shot and wanted to see something different, which you can easily do that when you're working with actors. It's just being like, hey, Tom Holland, say that line differently, make it a little funnier, make it a little more serious. And they do it. That's pretty easy. With animation, you have to draw it, you have to animate it, you have to do everything over and over again. So I do wonder if this is also a byproduct of that, but you'd think that there would be a little more creativity in some of these changes if it was this purposeful meta thing. The Spot's dialogue during his introduction. So when the Spot's revealing his storyline or his story to Spider-Man, the villain says, "Now look at me," in one of the Across the Spider-Verse versions. In the other, the Spot says, "Give me back my foot," as he gets confused by his own portals. So again, not a huge difference. This feels almost just an audible in the take rather than a cool wink, wink, nudge, nudge change. The Spot's dialogue during the hologram sequence, when when Gwen Stacy is investigating what the Spot was doing on Miles Morales' Earth using the Spider Society's hologram technology, audiences get to see and hear what the villain was doing a couple of hours earlier. In one of the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse versions, the Spot says, "Which would not be good," while contemplating what could happen if he put his finger in the mini collider, where he's going like that. In the other Across the Spider-Verse version, the Spot says, "Oh, what the heck," before activating the device. So again, just different kinds of humor. And then Miles Morales' dialogue in the chai tea sequence. So he calls out Pavitar Prabhakar. Spider-Man India calls out Miles for saying chai tea, which would be the same as saying TT. Miles apologizes. Yet what he says in each Across the Spider-Verse version is different. And one of them, Miles simply says, "No, no." And then Pavitar asks if he always says things like "coffee, coffee." In the other version, Miles instead says that he is sorry a couple of times. Really weird difference. The scene where Gwen looks for Miles in the rubble. And one of the Across the Spider-Verse versions playing in theaters, Gwen says a few lines while she is searching. And the other, Gwen has no lines when she's looking for Miles. And then Hobie Brown's introduction. So there's a subtle difference. In one of them, a comic book like text saying Hobie appears above the character's head after Miles realizes that was the Hobie Gwen was referring to. In the other version, there is no text. Okay. And then Ben Reilly. So Scarlet Spider, who's still the coolest looking Spider-Man of all time, as far as I'm concerned. It's him and just the symbiote costume. I think they're so cool. He probably has the most significant dialogue change here. In one version, he says, "I've got you trapped in my well-defined musculature, so don't even." In the other version, Riley says, "This one is called the sleeper holder. I'm using my bicep to constrict your," before Miles escapes. Sleeper holder? I think it's just supposed to be sleeper hold, but... and then Mary Jane's dialogue when Peter B. Parker comes back, it just goes from "Hi, huh?" I think it's supposed to be "Hi, hun," before asking how his work. In the other version, there is no "Hi, hun." So it's strange that there are multiple versions with such kind of pointless deviations, because if it was purposeful, again, you would expect more. And if it's not purposeful, this feels kind of lazy or just head scratching, like it's an accident rather than on purpose. But Yeah, that's those are the differences in the two versions of Across the Spider-Verse right now. I'm sure there's some other little subtle ones that maybe people haven't picked up on yet, but clearly there's no major changes between these two. So we'll see, if this continues in the next one. Maybe somebody will come out and be like, this was a huge mistake. Though Andy here was just saying, I wonder when people might start noticing, though he didn't. He didn't clarify if it was, we did this because we thought it would be fun, or just saying, it happened. I kind of want to ask him. I think I'm going to ask them. So we'll see. But that's it for this video. If you are enjoying the channel, we have a whole website called Film Colossus, where we write movie guides for films that have you have a deeper and better understanding of the movies you watch. And then we also have a podcast where we discuss movies in great, some would say way too much detail. So you can find that on the website, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, That's it for now. Until next time. Cheers.